Pretend for a moment that you wake up one morning to discover that the internet has disappeared. Would this be a doomsday for all of us? What if you woke up to an unexpected internet breakdown with no Google Maps to find your way in a strange city? With a credit card unable to pay for a lunch? You could argue that this kind of digital detox would be beneficial. We'd take our eyes off screen and strike up real-life conversation with each other. We discovered that our smartphone and computer can actually make phone call, video call, and etc. What if our internet connection disappear? We'd bring back fax machine and start making notes by hand. The world wouldn't fall apart. In fact, with almost 4 billion people having no access to the internet worldwide, half of the humanity wouldn't notice a difference. But you, my internet user, you would notice right away. If the internet suddenly flatline, social media user would start calling each other on the phone, overloading working telecommunication system unless cell phone towers and telephone lines were also shut down. Then you'd go back to writing letters and sending them via post. Forget about wireless fast transfer. With no Wi-Fi, you have to use a physical cable to connect to computers or a city. It is a pretty simple concept that in the internet age has almost become a form of exercise for some people. In 1991, the World Wide Web was officially branded that www in web addresses. Had to come from somewhere, diba? The following year, people began popularizing web speak with phrases like surfing the internet. But the question is, could we revive old habits and infrastructure? Within 2 years, the number of websites online goes from 100 to 1,000, including offering from the United Nations and the White House. From this baby step, the internet has morphed into almost living entity and at least some people. But what if it is simply disappear? Some of the consequences resulting from an internetless world would be felt more by certain generation. An 85-year-old grandparents may be still more comfortable using an old-fashioned line to call their grandchildren rather than text them. An activity some people currently partake in dozen, maybe even hundreds of times. No texting, no more surfing, website, and of course, say goodbye to the social media. If you only knew the last tweet you sent out about Tony Gonzaga hosting the proclamation rally for BBM Sara would be your last. Now think about the economy. With financial data generally stored on a server, banking services largely depend on the internet. E-transfer would be impossible. Your credit and debit card would become a useless piece of plastic. Rethink the way you pay. Back to good old cash? Well, you know the answer. It is estimated that 85% of Filipinos use the internet in some way or another. Not just Facebook and Twitter. The global economy has shifted to an ever-increasing reliance on online shop and financial transaction. E-transfer would be wiped out. People would have to step back to writing their landlords rent check, and trillion-dollar losses would be felt by a variety of industries around the world. Countries that are rely heavy on the internet to help with their economic growth and stability would drag less. Tech-savvy countries down with them as trade channel built around the online world collapses. On the top of the large companies like Google, Facebook, and Amazon would go out of business, losing their combined revenue of almost $40 billion, with Google itself having 80% of full-time staff. Hundreds of thousands people would be left unemployed. Even companies that only rely on the internet has meant of advertising would be affected. Developed countries would be lost entire industries and the face economic crisis. And what about those countries with just a small internet presence? They would be affected too, as the international trade is dependent on the internet. So is the world transit with no internet access between airports, plane, ship, trains, and commercial tracking, we'd go back to tracking goods on paper. This would raise the market value on transported product as it would be more complicated to deliver goods to store. At this could still travel. However, you won't have Instagram to share your travel selfies anymore. Wonder if the internet shutdown is even possible. Well, not on a worldwide level. Some countries have actually introduced a kill switch to intentionally shut down internet and telephone communication. But killing the whole internet is harder than just cutting off a couple submarine cables. The internet is the global network of many other computer networks. It doesn't depend on a single machine. Even if one part of it offline, other would remain functional. At the end of the world as we know it, the internet is still not be all and end all of service available to mankind, but it is a difference would instantly change our world as we know it. This is Charles, and that's it.